welcome to the first episode of the pod. I am pumped because we've got Lauren Ferry on today, who is the dynamite founder of Hungover AF, co-founder of Lauren Labeled. She went from working retail sales at Nordstrom to now doing over 6 figures a month in net profit in her business, Hungover AF, and she is just on the way up. Lauren has been a client of our accounting firm at Alpine Mar for about the last year now, and we are beyond excited that we get to partner with her as she continues to grow her businesses, grow her brands, and she is, like I said, just on the way up. So without further ado, here's the pod. All right, I'm pumped. So Lauren, thanks for joining. And how does it feel to be the first person on what is probably going to become the next biggest podcast?
I mean, I'm super stoked. I think this is going to be awesome. So thanks for having me as the first person on the podcast.
Yeah, we don't have like a name or anything for it yet. We're working on it. So that's going to be fun. But yeah, I'm pumped that we get to have you on because I feel like you're pretty special. I don't think there's a lot of people out there like you. And so I think the coolest thing is that, in my opinion, you're going to be like huge one day, I think. And we're like being able to catch you on the way up.
Yeah, that's, I've even been saying to myself, like, I'm kind of pissed at my own self for not documenting the entire, I have a ton of photos and videos from, like, if we want to even add them in here too, when we're editing, we can, from when like I did kind of start everything. But I also think I have a little bit of like a cringe thing when it comes to like all the gurus who are like on YouTube being like, here's me when I started. And I'm like, I don't want to act like an expert yet. Like that's not my thing. So,
yeah.
I want to learn and then talk about it.
Totally. Yeah. So I guess real quick. So I guess just to introduce you, I'm just going to give like a quick overview, right? So Lauren Ferry, college dropout, goes from working retail at Nordstrom's to then co-founding a marketing agency, ad agency. I think you guys do a few different things. We'll get into that. To then founding a e-commerce startup that has just like absolutely crushed it and blown up. So pumped, so exciting to see. And obviously the way we're able to see you is that you're one of our clients, and it's been awesome watching you grow and everything. So I guess without further ado, where in the heck did you come from?
Yeah. No, thank you for that introduction. Yeah. So I guess to kind of like start things out, I feel like when I was really young, I feel like I always knew I like wanted to have my own thing. And I didn't want anyone to like be my boss. Like that was a huge thing for me. I feel like when I was a lot younger, and I was also very money conscious. Like even Kevin and I talked about that the other day when we were talking about like all the funds that Lauren Labeled holds, and like we just let it just, stay in the bank account and just let it stack, because money was like always something that was really scary for me when it came to like, well, what if I like have no money one day, So I've always been super money conscious, and I knew the only way that I was ever going to like, quote unquote, like be rich or make it in life is if I did it myself. I always knew that a W-2 was not going to get me there. I always knew that if someone was above me, I wasn't going to be able to like, get to my goals, because I always had a ceiling. And I think for me, like once I finally, kind of got into sales, which what you mentioned was like Nordstrom was like the first sales. Like, yeah, I was on an hourly basis if we didn't end up making X amount of dollars in sales at Nordstrom. But that was where I was like, okay, if I can sell 35 Michelle watches in a month, maybe I can make, $5,000 or $8,000 this month, instead of like getting this like W-2 paycheck that was an hourly wage. So that's kind of where like the mentality started.
Well, so I guess like even going back like before that, so no, you decided at some point like, okay, I'm not doing the college thing. Like that's not for me. And I know when we initially talked like a couple weeks ago, which I thought was so cool, was you just like picked up one day and basically moved
Yeah.
clear cross country, um, not with like really no plans, like no idea,
Right.
didn't really have a job, just kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And obviously you did pretty well. So I guess like what was that like? Like what I guess leaving high school and kind of like where you grew up and everything, and just deciding to like on a whim like go one day. I
Mhm.
guess what made you think that like, hey, I'm not doing this whole college thing. This isn't for me. And at what point were you like, and why am I just picking up my stuff and I'm going, trying
Yeah.
something new?
I feel like first things first, like I'm not good at school. Like I can easily say it. I'm almost like proud to say it. I'm not school smart. Like I'm more on the street smart side of things. And then also at the same time, I feel like I have the mentality of someone who's like, you can get whatever you want if you just talk to someone. Like you can say like, you can want this crazy job at this crazy company and you can get there potentially, at least I think, even without a college degree, if you just somehow work your way up to the guy that needs to hire you. Like, that's just where I kind of think like how things work. But as far as like me moving, so when I like decided when I was 22, I decided to move from St. Louis to St. Petersburg, Florida, signed a lease with like, a girl that I kind of knew through friends of friends that went to college together. My plan was really to just like get here and then talk to as many people as possible. So every single time I had an opportunity to go somewhere, I went, even if I knew it was going to be kind of uncomfortable or awkward. Like, I was invited on a party bus with, a ton of people I didn't know within the first month that I moved here. And I was like, screw it, I'll just go. Like, let's just see what happens. And ended up meeting, my boyfriend who we've been dating now for over 4 years. So it's kind of crazy that that happened. But I'm kind of just like, I'm one of those people where, once I moved here, I was just like, let's just figure out how you just don't fail and then we'll go from there, So like for me, not failing was I wanted to try to get like a job that I really wanted to do long term instead of like just working at a random place. I ended up working at Nordstrom. I didn't really want to work at Nordstrom that bad, but I was like, I need to start making some money. So I started working at Nordstrom. And then from there, like, it's kind of a crazy story because things just kind of happened when they needed to happen from there, like over those last 4 years. So I got here in August of 2019. I worked at Nordstrom and then COVID happened. So I was kicked out of like, Nordstrom out of that W-2. I didn't actually like say, Lauren, you're going to do this and now you're going to make this next move and then you're going to do that. It wasn't like that. It was like COVID shut everyone down. I didn't have a job. And then I ended up what was going on at that time? So my landlord was talking to me every once in a while, being like, what do you do for work? Like, and I was like, oh, well, I work at, Nordstrom right now. And then him and I kind of kept in contact. And while COVID was going on in the world, I had a really close friend who didn't actually lose his job because of COVID, and it was insurance door to door sales. And he was like, do you want to, work at insurance with me? Like, we'll do Medicare, life insurance, things like that. You don't get a paycheck, it's all sales. And I was like, I have nothing to lose. There's no other places that are hiring. And I get to run appointments with one of my best friends. So I was like, sure, I'll do this. And I ended up doing it for 5 months. And I was knocking on doors during COVID. I had people inviting me in, being like, come sit into her house, learn everything about us. And then they'd write me a check for life insurance and I'd make like $3,000. And I was like, this is awesome. So I did that for like 4 months. I ended up being like one of the best and youngest people actually like in the Clearwater office. And that was the first time I ever saw, like in my opinion, like a big amount of money in a small amount of time. And so at that point I had made like, 50 or $60,000 in a 4 month time frame. And I was like, this is awesome. And from there, I ended up quitting because my landlord came to me and was like, I need someone to help me, take over Central Florida real estate market. We fix and flip houses. We also wholesale houses. I want you to be like the face of like everything we do. I want you to help me hire people. Like I want to build this out and I think you would be a great fit. He just took like the leap of faith on me, which I thought was crazy. So then I go to my insurance place and I'm like, "Hey, I have a better opportunity." So that was like the same thing again. It was just like, "Hey, I have something better. I'm just going to do this." So then him and I worked together for like, 2 years. I learned so much about real estate, how it is like the most important thing when it comes to building wealth, how it's going to be in your life no matter what, even if you're not truly investing, if it's just about buying your own home. Like there are so many important things about real estate that I think will take you, through your entire life. And then from there, another thing happened. Lauren and I were talking at a park one day and we were like, "Hey, let's try this, this UGC thing. Let's try to make videos for brands. Like they really need content like this." And then within 2 months, I basically had to, say to Matt, my landlord, I had to say like, "Hey, like I can't do this anymore. I'm going to take a leap of faith on this." And with Lauren Labeled and Hungover, they are hand in hand right now. So, like, fast forward now to, beginning of 2024. The reason that Hungover exists is because of everything that I know, kind of like everything else in the past, too. But it's because of everything I know with Lauren Labeled. Like, and I don't know if you want to like go in with another question or something, but like when it comes to Lauren Labeled, the reason that Hungover exists is because I saw the kind of success I saw in all my other clients and everything else that we were doing for them. And I got to watch TikTok basically explode for brands when they said, "Hey, I'm going to write you a check and I'm going to, be able to say, hey, you made me millions of dollars on this one video." I ended up realizing towards the end of, 2022, like I'm getting the short end of the stick. I definitely
Yeah.
can do this on the other side of things.
Yeah, I think like one of the coolest things too, like about just your story in general, and like going back to the fact that you're like, yeah, I sucked at school. I was terrible. I hated
Yeah.
it. And then you look at everything though that you learned and you were able to apply in the real world when it matters. And I feel like there's probably so many people out there that resonates with. And I feel one of the biggest differences probably between you and there's a lot of other people that probably have a lot of that. But I think one of the things that probably, you know, separates success is ones that have confidence versus ones that don't, because I feel
Oh
like
my gosh.
school can be one of those things too where it's like if you're not good at it and you see fail and you see people that are doing well and they're excelling and hey, we got a college scholarship or whatever, it's very easy if you're not one of those people to probably look at it and be like, wow, I have no confidence, I'm not, I can't go out and do anything else. These people are going to kill it, right? Whereas I feel like you had the confidence to just
Right.
say, yeah, you know what, this thing isn't for me, but there's a bunch of other stuff that probably is. And
Right.
you were able to go out and figure it all out. It was what you learned in the application of doing stuff and then being able to go out and execute. And I think that's so cool, so awesome. I think there's probably a lot of people that need to hear that.
Yeah. I definitely give it to the people who are my close friends and, or were my close friends. And I watched them go through college and spend all this money and be in all this debt now. And they're like, "Lauren, like I can't get a job that pays more than $65,000 a year." And in my mind, I'm like, we're 27 years old. Like I want to like be able to get married and have kids like in the next 3 years. Like, how are you going to do that if you're starting this low and like this late, in my opinion, sometimes? But at the same time, it's like that's how a majority of the world works. It's not like this crazy thing that, I'm watching my friends experience. It's been like this forever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. So like I guess going back before we get into Lauren Labeled and Hungover a little bit, like
Yeah.
did you have any kind of like influences or exposure to like business or anything just like growing up, like whether it
Yeah.
was a small business world or something? Because obviously I think the world looked a lot different from a lot of things that you're involved with today with technology, e-com and everything. Like who were your influences? Who'd you look up to? And did you have any kind of like exposure to business and uh, learning any of those things before you actually went out and started applying it yourself?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I feel like the root of me being confident and saying like I'm gonna figure it out is truly from like watching my mom be a single mom. Like I think that that was the core. I think that is the core of who I am. It was my mom like knew her whole life like I'm struggling. This sucks, but we're gonna make it through somehow, some way. Like we're gonna figure it out, you know. And so I feel like when I was watching her raise me and like always struggle when it came to like trying to like figure out how to like feed two kids, like that was just like a big motivator for me to be able to say like I've seen this, like I don't want this to happen and I'm going to start as early as I can to make sure this doesn't happen. But in terms of like actual people that like, you know, were my mentors or I looked up to, I would say like it's really just been, you know, the people I've like met through my journey, probably starting after Nordstrom. There wasn't like anyone at Nordstrom that I'm like, you know, you were an awesome mentor, but I did learn like awesome customer service from Nordstrom. Like it was the customer's always right. Like that was huge for me. And then in terms of like I guess everything after that, you know, there were very like key people that basically like changed my mindset to say like, hey, $1 million isn't that much money. And like if you would have asked me that when I moved down here and I was like, you know, building up, you know, $10,000 of debt in the first 6 months that I was living in Florida, I would have been like $1 million is like unfathomable, you know, like that there's no
Yeah.
way that I'll ever make $1 million in my life. And so the people and the things that I did within, you know, the time of like, you know, all the real estate and all the insurance and everything like that made me realize like a lot about money and a lot about like
Yeah.
how to run a business.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So moving forward, so Lauren labeled, so you got an awesome
Mhm.
partner, all like awesome, who's another rock star who we'll
Yeah.
probably end up talking to also. And so you guys have successful like marketing agency, you guys are kicking ass, doing well and everything. And then you decide, hey, these skills that I've learned in 2023, I think it's probably like what, May? Or was it a little bit before
It was like
May?
March is when I officially launched at the end of March.
So March 2023, you launch a brand new business called
Mhm.
Hungover AF, and just overnight
Mhm.
basically blows up. So for context, we go through all these different, periods of time in your life to all of a sudden now you're in 2023 and you're doing six figures in net profit every single month.
Mhm.
Um, and you're just getting started.
Right.
Um, which has got to be mind blowing.
It is. It's like very hard to actually understand, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So it's one of the coolest things to watch, like from the outside looking in and everything. And like I said, we're pumped that we're able to kind of like see it and go along with you on the ride, kind of be a partner to you, for this. So I guess in the last, because it hasn't even been that long. I mean, you haven't even been a
Right.
year in yet.
I know.
Okay, so you're 9 months in on Hungover AF. What are the biggest takeaways? What are the things that you've learned over the course of those 9 months in running what is now really going to be multi-million dollar business? Um,
Yeah. I would say I would say my biggest takeaways are like maybe like three of the things that I've struggled the most with was number one, like the delayed gratification piece. And like maybe this is common sense for some people who are, you know, maybe a little bit more seasoned and being a full blown entrepreneur where you're bootstrapped and you didn't raise any money or anything like that. But the delayed gratification and like just always reminding yourself that like money comes later is it's really hard, honestly. Because at the end of the day, it's like you're putting in more hours than any normal W-2 job when you start something like this, you know, like you literally are thinking about it all the time. I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea and I'm like, if I don't write this down, I'm going to forget it. Or if I don't, you know, remember to do this tomorrow, like in my mind, it's like the whole world could collapse, in a certain way, because I'm the only one responsible for the trajectory like of this business at this point. So that was like something really hard for me to understand in the beginning of this, because as because you handle all the financials, I spent, March all the way to November spending every single penny, putting it back into inventory, to the point where I at one point had to take out a loan for my other business and say, like, let's cross my fingers and hope that these Black Friday sales and this inventory that I'm hoping to sell will sell. You know what I mean? So the risk taking and the delayed gratification have been like huge, I think, like character building things that I've really learned in this like whole process. And then another small part of like that, which is kind of similar, is just like the timing of inventory. And in terms of e-commerce, when you're building a brand that you want to have like a really great reputation, is always 3 to 4 months out of you thinking, which I didn't know until fairly recently, like I placed an order for some new designs, and I'm thinking like, oh, well, this will come in this month. But at that point, when they do come, it might actually be a completely different season. And you just don't really know any of this until you're in it and you're constantly realizing it. So that's been like huge too. And then I'm trying to think if there's like anything else that I have.
And
Oh,
I
another.
think one of the
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just, the last thing I was going to say is like, and this is like more of a broad thing that I've been constantly talking to Lauren about too. And it's the fact that I really truly think that times are changing, where there are so many people who like have, 3 or 4 different ecom brands, and they always raise money for the brands before they even get their feet wet and say, hey, does someone actually want to buy this? And I think that there's something so wrong with the way on like how a lot of people do it when it comes to raising all this money, hiring all these different really, really successful media marketers, and spending all this money on ads, when you don't even know if these people want to buy your product. So why wouldn't you just like test the waters first? And that's a huge thing I learned at Lauren Labeled, like that ties back, is Lauren and I didn't go all in on Lauren Labeled one day. We just said, let's put up a website, let's see if people are interested. And then when it became time to like cut ties and spend more time, that's what we did. And I think that it's really important for people to know, like, if they're watching this and they really want to get into e-commerce, like, it really doesn't have to be something where you are raising $150,000 to $500,000 to start something successful. Like, that's just not the case.
That's such a good message. I feel like it's very on point with like even with what a lot of like just VCs are talking about right now, with what everything that's going on in the economy, right? The
Right.
news over the course of the last, 15, 18, 24 months has been, interest rates, interest rates, interest rates. And, we had this huge period of time of zero interest rates. And VCs are talking about, um, the importance of bootstrapping and being conservative and finding product market fit and hitting profitability before you get into that next phase of taking capital on, in the form of convertible, or doing a seed round, series A, whatever it is. You're
Mm-hmm.
so right on that. And so and you've seen it firsthand. You guys have done it now,
Right.
with 2 different businesses. I think one of the funniest things that you ever sent me, because I love it when we get text from you, like just like randomly every once in a while, or whatever, like what you have going on. It's
Yeah.
like so much fun. I'm like, oh, this is great. What did Lauren say? What does she have going on today? What kind of fire is she dealing with? And I remember you asking, you're like, hey, can I write off rent for like an office or like storage space, because I'm basically like living with my product right now in my
Yeah.
living room. I'm literally swimming in it. And
Yeah.
I think like the funniest thing is like what your solution was to that. So maybe you want to share that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then maybe we can like throw a photo of it too. But Basically, so it really goes back to probably like August. It was either July or August. I don't know why, but I had this like calling to like sit down and be like, how many caps do you want to sell by the end of the year? And I literally sat down and I like ran all these different numbers. Mind you, I'm like not that good with numbers. So like if I was super off, like that would have been very normal for me to be really off. But so I start thinking to myself like, okay, well, I want to sell, 20,000 by the end of the year. And at this point, I had only done maybe like 6,000. And I was just like, we're going to figure it out. I was just like, we're going to do it. So that's when I was talking about I took out the loan from my other business, took all the cash that of everything I had earned in the, first 4 months. And I said, okay, I'm going to place an order for all this inventory. But I really don't know why I never thought like, where is it going to go? Like, I don't know why that never crossed my mind because I had already had boxes to my ceiling in my guest room. And I was just thinking like, okay, they're just all just going to go to the ceiling again. But it was probably like quadruple the amount that I had ever had in my house. And so it's basically like all the caps are, they finally land in California. And I still had an entire room full of inventory. And I was just like, what am I going to do about this? Like, I need to rent a house. I started scrambling, looking for houses around the area where I could just fill the whole house with boxes and pack there. And then I was like, this just isn't financially like smart for me to do. So then I ended up getting like a storage unit in my backyard. And now that's where just all the inventory is being held.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I mean, when you go back and you're talking about like, you don't know what's going to be in season when you're ordering something and
Right.
anything like that. It's funny because I feel like to an extent you maybe it was that you learned over time a little bit in the business, but like I remember you ramping up and spending on that inventory leading up to Black Friday and the holidays and it's like September and you're like, yeah, I'm placing orders for this stuff. I'm going all in and we're going to sell out for the holidays and Black Friday and all that. And so like you were all in, you were taking that risk and you were planning it out, accordingly. Which I think, was ended up being smart and you executed.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how that ended up working, but yeah, it ended up working itself out. But I was definitely really, really nervous because I was just like, there's going to be so much inventory that's in all the cash is going to be tied up. And I was just thinking to myself, even if I don't sell it by the end of December, like it'll last me through, March or April. And it'll be nice to not have to worry about inventory since I've constantly just been selling out over and over. But then end of November comes and I'm sold out of everything except for pink. So it's a good problem to have, but it ended up being so wild. I like don't even know how that happened.
I want to talk about your business model for a minute. So you sell on Shopify, you're on TikTok, right? And so I think your initial go-to-market plan was definitely utilizing TikTok. Like that was like your initial, hey, this is what I know. This is what I'm going to use. And then you also have Shopify store. So what would you say is the split between kind of like where you sell between Shopify and TikTok and where a majority of your sales funnel is?
My customers are probably 70% on TikTok and then the rest is just through my Shopify account. So I get a majority of my sales through TikTok right now. And I do think that that could change like in this upcoming year, especially with like, all the different things I'm trying to implement when it comes to like actually spending money on ads. And that's all stuff I didn't do last year. Last year, the only thing I did was organic TikTok. So it makes sense. It's just coming from TikTok right now. But I did.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy that it's just like you spent no money on ads. It was literally just organic TikTok and you've reached the success that you've had with all that. It's crazy.
I know.
So
it is bizarre.
So cool. So, so I guess for one, you're probably like, wow, going into 2024, 2023 has got to be a hard year to beat, but I know you're definitely.
I think so. Yeah. It's kind of scary.
And definitely you've got so much stuff that you're able to, I think, throw on this business. And I think you're already, thinking thinking about it and doing it. But um, you have a business where you've got gross margins of, north of 70%.
Mhm.
And, obviously, how to keep your overhead low, just through your operating costs and everything. It's a, relatively low overhead business to manage right now, which is really just a pod out of your backyard, which is fantastic.
Right.
So what are you thinking about next in terms of operating the business? Um,
Mhm.
how are you thinking about growth? What's the next act? Like, I know these are like, side conversations that we've like briefly had before and everything, but like, I'm so curious to know, like, all right, what are you thinking about for 2024? What are
Yeah.
the next things to implement? And are you going to change anything and do anything operationally where you do introduce maybe a little bit more overhead to maybe alleviate some of the stress, or from
Yeah.
doing everything yourself? Because I mean, you're still packaging them and even shipping them yourself.
The way I look at it is right now, TikTok Shop is still offering free shipping. It's not for every single customer that purchases, it's just every new customer that has never purchased. So, right now, my biggest cost it really is shipping. So, I'm like, I'm just going to ride this wave as long as I can. And then once TikTok says, like, hey, we're no longer offering this, I'm going to have to make, a decision that's going to cut into my margins pretty significantly compared to last year. I'll probably end up getting a 3PL at that point because I just don't know if it is worth the stress and the, like I can't even like figure out how to keep tabs like on the actual inventory itself. So just being able to have someone take care of that and be like, hey, you're low on stock and this many and your lead time is 60 to 75 days, like we got to get a new order in, would do a lot for me. So I'll probably end up doing that in terms of like operations wise. But next for like the business is, it's a lot of exciting stuff. I would say like I'm definitely going to be introducing like I hope at least two new products, one for sure by the end of March. But I'm hoping for, at least one more before the end of December of 2024. And then like in terms of just like what's going to change, like in terms of just like the business strategy is like the hardest part is figuring out if it's going to be like a proven concept. That was like the biggest hurdle, that is everyone's biggest hurdle. And for me, like now that I know it's more than just a proven concept, it's something that people are like obsessed with, will like email me paragraphs about, something that people will like constantly talk about online, is super super cool. So I feel like the sky is the limit for me this year, but I think it's still really important for me to like still make very maybe frugal is the wrong word, but frugal decisions, because I do still have the mindset of like, well, what if we never top, last year, and like I'm just dumping money into things that maybe don't work as well and aren't giving me the best ROI. So I'm definitely making small decisions like, time, like every, I would say like every month and a half or 2 months, I'm like coming up with like something new, like influencer marketing or Google Shop. But I'm not going to spend like, I'm not going to be that guy that comes in and it's like, okay, $50,000 of ad spend, like, let's go. That's not me. So,
I think that's smart. I think that's a really smart strategy.
yeah,
Stay the course, especially when you're already, basically doing $1 million a year on just organic TikTok. Like
right.
that's um, just throwing in some ads. I mean, just doing small little tweaks of
Small.
just throwing some gasoline on the fire to
Yeah.
see what works and what doesn't.
And don't they
That's awesome.
always say
So
like the businesses that fail are the ones that like will grow too fast too? Like isn't that a huge saying? Like the ones that will, like if I were to just like go all in and hire in like 6 or 7 people to try to take me into like the 15 million mark this year, it's like what are the odds that I'll fail? Probably a lot higher than if I just made baby steps this year.
yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of truth to that. There's probably a lot of examples that you could pull on that. I mean, um, not to say that there's not plenty of people that are able to like grow like crazy
Right.
quick and everything, but it might also be their second, their third act where they've done it before, where they did the slow thing. Where I don't know if
Right.
I'd call what you're doing slow, because I don't know if that's what it says,
Right.
but we'll go with that.
Slow is such
um,
a word.
so where you're at now, what you've accomplished, what you got in front of you in 2024, which I'm like so beyond excited to see kind of what you do with the business, what else, what else you grow, what other categories. Think two, last question. So one, you're in the technology space, e-com, kind of social media and everything. Where do you see the future of the world going with all of this? Like everybody's think, I feel like we come from a generation that we were so used to growing up with so many changes, kind of so quickly. All things are relative, but with just us seeing the advent of the iPhone to MySpace,
Right.
Facebook, Instagram, all these different things that have rolled out. Um, what do you see? I guess in the future and over the course of the next couple of years, kind of developing and being something that's a hot topic.
Yeah. No, I love this question. And I feel like it gets asked to people like Gen Z a lot because we are in this weird mix where like I grew up with a home phone still. Like like you and I can still relate on a lot of things together, but I'm also like at the forefront of this era of like all these crazy things are happening that we probably would have never imagined would have ever happened. I think, and I'm so biased, and this is such a hot take, but like I think Instagram is dead. I think it's just a completely dead place to be. I've
Love
been
that.
off of it for 4 years now. So like I said, I'm so biased and I don't like Instagram. I use Facebook to like keep in touch with people since I don't have Instagram. Like that's where I like read about people's lives and see photos of like what they're doing and what they're up to. So I do think Facebook will like always be around for that, like memorabilia type of aspect. I think TikTok is going to like absolutely crush when it comes to like especially just like how they're using their marketplace right now. Like TikTok shop is not I don't even think it's been a one full year of TikTok shop yet. They're coming out with like, all these new features, all these new different things. Like now they're, charging an 8% processing fee. They used to charge, I think it was like 2%. So like a lot of things are changing, but I also think it's going to give an opportunity for like massive brands to sell on TikTok. And, it could potentially be huge competition for Amazon. Like, at the end of the day, it's right now, it's not like this prime 2-day shipping type of thing on there, but I think it totally could be. So many people are purchasing products and like being influenced to buy things through video more than ever. Like, seeing an influencer posing on their countertop with a paper towel brand is not going to be the same as someone just showing the difference between two different brands on a, piece of countertop and just being like, this is why this one's better. So I just think that the whole era of video is just gonna it's just gonna just like keep changing, but keep influencing people to be obsessed with short form content. I know that like YouTube is still, kind of out there, but at the same time, like shorts is like huge now too. So I think there's a lot of different things, but I think TikTok will be here to stay for a little bit until there's like the next biggest thing.
Yep. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that about Instagram because I feel the same way, and I'm nowhere near as plugged into the scene as you are.
Yeah.
And I know with I mean, I haven't been on I hadn't been on Facebook for years, and recently I went back to it, realizing that I still had an account and like reactivated it, and it was like nostalgia.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess last thing before we jump off, what advice would you give your younger self now, or and maybe that's you know right when you were starting your own thing, or maybe going back and like when you were just bolting out of St. Louis and
Mhm.
moving across country. Like if you were to go back and give yourself advice knowing what you know now, what would it be?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Or maybe even anybody that's maybe kind of similar to you, maybe trying to figure out what they're going to do.
Right. I mean, very this is just so real. Like I would say move out of your hometown, to be honest. Like that would be my biggest piece of advice for someone else. I don't know what I would have to think about what I would say to myself, but to like anyone like out there watching this, or like anyone who would like be similar to me when it comes to like where they are right now as 22-year-old Lauren, like I would just say, get out of the place where you grew up. You know, even if you're in this massive city, like at the end of the day, it's so important for you to get up, do your own thing, figure it out, and like also just like it's like such a weird phrase that everyone always uses, but it's like the be, you know, comfortable with being uncomfortable type of thing. Like that's the only way that I am like where I am right now, is just like constantly just being like having the worst anxiety going to get coffee with someone that I met on LinkedIn, or like, you know, that I'm just like, hey, I just moved to St. Pete, would love to like learn about what you're working on like in St. Pete right now. Like something like so stupid. And I'm like going into the coffee shop to meet someone. I don't know really what they look like because their photo could be completely, you know, just like old. But like being uncomfortable is like the reason why I am here today, you know?
Well, thanks for jumping on today. I am so
Yeah.
happy, like I said, that we were able to have you as the first one on
Yeah.
this, what this is going to become, whatever it's going to become. And hopefully we'll do this again, maybe in like 6 months, a year or something, and
Yeah.
see
And
where you're
see
at
where
then.
we're at. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. I am so
Well,
stoked
thank
for
you.
you for 2024 and everything that you have ahead. So we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Roads and Riches podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting. Let us know how we're doing. And if you're an individual or a business that's in need of accounting services, maybe you're in the market for a new CPA, whether it be tax, accounting, fractional CFO services for your business, or transaction advisory services if you're contemplating a transaction, you should consider using Alpine Mar, the CPA firm that's redefining the accounting industry. You can head on over to alpinemar.com or roadsandriches.com to learn more about us and find a contact form to get in touch. Find out if we can be a good fit for you. We'll see you next time on the Roads and Riches pod.